Hello. It is Morndas, the 2nd of Hearthfire, the year 582. I'm currently standing in my home and I've decided that I'm going to pull some books from my library. I would like to start reading these, and I would like for you to hear them, for as much as you would like to listen. On today's agenda, we will be reading 3 books on Minotaurs, The Wolf and the Dragon, and Cathedral Hierarchy. All 3 of these books belonging to the Gold Coast Home section of the Law Library. We will start with On Minotaurs. On Minotaurs by Nonus Caprinius, temporarily unaffiliated scholar of imperial antiquities. No matter how many institutions of higher education expel me, no matter how many publishers decline to print and distribute my theories, I refuse to recant my position or change the topic of my research, not until Minotaurs have received the recognition and respect that they deserve. In the course of my research into the origins of the Empire, specifically the rise and fall of the Elysian Order, I came across a wondrous thing. Hidden in the background, often purposefully obscured, but still visible to those of us who know what to look for, was an entire race of humanoids who have all been but stricken from the historical record. This crime against history must not stand, and I pledge to restore these creatures to their proper place in the chronicle of the Empire. I'm referring, of course, to the maligned and misunderstood Minotaur. These humanoids with bodies that resemble humans and heads that resemble bulls trace their lineage to Empress Elysia herself. While no period records survive to state the truth of the situation, many ancient documents from later periods speak of a relationship between the slave queen and Kinneret's son, Morehouse, whom the divine sent to aid and advise Elysia. Often depicted as a minotaur, the demigod Morehouse, I believe, gave rise to the race through his dalliances with the slave queen and the birth of her son, Belhazar the man-bull. Whatever the truth regarding the origins of the Minotaurs, they began to appear in greater and greater numbers in the years during and after Empress Elysia's reign. I contend that the early Minotaurs were as intelligent and cultured in their own way as any elf or orc or Khajiit. Fiercely loyal to the Empire, the Minotaurs were among Empress Elysia's most devoted defenders. Certain art and tomes from the time hint as much. But many of my detractors want to know where the hard evidence is to back up my claims. Unfortunately, much of that evidence was destroyed in the intervening period while the misnamed Elysian Order held sway over the Empire. It was, after all, the Elysian Order that followed the rigorous Elysian doctrines. Of all the rules and regulations set forth by the 77 inflexible doctrines, the most notorious were those firmly opposed to the elves. I contend that the Order wasn't restricted to anti-elven sentiment. I believe its resentful followers applied the doctrines to any non-human races they felt like persecuting, including the Minotaurs. One remaining fragment of an ancient tablet known as the Belhazar Stone shows what most scholars agree is a section of a larger carving depicting Belhazar, the man-bull, second emperor of the Elysian Empire, facing down enemies. My own study of the fragment tells a very different story. By the cut of their armor and the shape of their spears, I believe the so-called enemies depicted in the carving are actually fanatical precursors of Elysian troops. The spears jabbed directly at the Minotaur's heart indicate that these Proto-Elysians killed or drove off the Minotaurs, thus beginning the decline of the race that we still see in evidence in the current day. It's a shame what happened to the once majestic race of bullmen. But wait, I can already hear my detractors already. They demand more evidence, evidence that I fear was wiped out along with 100 other atrocities committed by the Elysian Order. But I do have one more fact to consider, and it's evident to anyone willing to travel to specific sites and watch the activity of the Minotaurs from a safe distance. If you happen to study the Minotaur in the wild, you'll find they often congregate at or near ancient sites of significance to the Empire. Why? I contend it's because they have an instinctual memory of a time when they were fierce defenders of the fledgling empire. I contend that they are drawn to such sites, compelled to continue to defend them despite the actions of the Elysian Order that arose and all but destroyed these remarkable creatures. Oh, scoff if you must. Go ahead, I've suffered worse. But take a moment and at least consider what I've presented. Then ask yourself, why do the Minotaurs guard these ancient imperial sites? Maybe, in that question, you'll come to appreciate the Minotaurs. At least a little. The Wolf and the Dragon by Medara Salvidicus, historian, University of Gwilym. When Varan Aquilarios left the Gold Coast with the Second Legion to carry his rebellion into the heart of Cyrodiil, he didn't leave his beloved homeland completely unprotected. Between a slim wall that stretched from the shores of the Abyssinian Sea to the banks of the Strid River, and a surrogate champion in the form of his nephew, Carolus Kvatch, Kvatch and the surrounding countryside were spared both the retaliation of the Longhouse Emperor and the degradations of the war that followed. But there were still plenty of opportunities for the Wolf of Kvatch to take on the Imperial Dragon. Carolus Aquilarius idolized his uncle and was eager to help when Varan declared open rebellion against the Emperor. In fact, Carolus wanted to join Varan and fight alongside him as he marched towards the Imperial city. But Varan had other plans for Carolus. He wanted someone he could trust to protect his home front, someone like his honorable nephew. Disappointed not to be beside Varan and in the midst of the action, Carolus nevertheless vowed to keep Kvatch and its people safe, just as his uncle knew he would. He immediately assumed temporary command of the county of Kvatch. Shortly after Varan and the majority of Second Legion departed the Gold Coast, the imperial prefect of Anvil and Ephraim Benaris, the Count of Anvil, sent imperial forces stationed in the coastal city inland to seize Varan Aquilarius' property and holdings. Carolus rallied the single cohort of the Second Legion that Varan left in his command, as well as the Kvatch warders, the famed defenders of the city. Kvatch's defenders met the Imperial forces on the plains below the city. The battle was short and fierce, ending with the remnants of Envil's forces, now greatly reduced, retreating back the way they had came. The Wolf of Kvatch had repelled an attack by the Imperial Dragon. Before the year was out, Anvil sent its dwindling Imperial troops against Kvatch 3 more times, and each time they came away beaten and fewer than they were before. Then, word reached the region that Varan Aquilarius had ascended to the Ruby Throne. Carolus, who was being called the Wolf of Kvatch for his bravery and leadership, officially inherited the title of Count of Kvatch, and took the wolf's head symbol as his own. Unfortunately, Kvatch's good fortune would not last long. As soon as Carolus was officially named Count of Kvatch, Artorius Ponticus, Primate of Kvatch, began working to undermine the Count's authority and carve out more power and influence for himself. Always ambitious and powerful in his own right as the religious authority of Cyrodiil, the Primate had a grudgingly civil relationship with Varan and had put aside his ambitions while Carolus struggled to keep Kvatch safe. With the change in regime in the capital, however, it appeared that the Primate sought a more influential position in the city's hierarchy. Before this challenge could come to a head, however, something significant occurred in Anvil. But that's a tale for another book. Cathedral Hierarchy, a primer for Novitiates by Chanter Amir. Novitates, allow me to once again welcome to your new role in the service of Akatosh, the dragon god of time. You begin upon a journey of great importance and spiritual reward, but you are not the first to tread this path, nor will you be the last. Many share this journey and will tackle the same challenges that stand before you. While your path may not lead to the same destination as your fellow Novitates, it does travel in the same general direction. As you begin to perform the duties of the Cathedral of Akatosh, you must ask yourself how you wish to revere the Dragon God of Time. Will you spread the word of the Dragon God through prayer and guidance, leading worshippers through their devotions and hearing their pleas? Or will you take to the pulpit and the street with the holy text in hand, speaking the truths of the divines to those who require a rekindling of the fires of faith? After you complete your initiations, you'll be asked to make that choice, to take up the mantle of chanter or sermonizer. Reflect on your decision carefully, for the demands of each branch in the path are very different. Remember that the Primate oversees all aspects of Akatosh worship in the cathedral, supported equally by the Grand Chanter and the Grand Sermonizer. For this reason, chanters and sermonizers stand shoulder to shoulder, bringing the light of Akatosh to the masses in equal but different ways. As a chanter, you will follow the lead of the Grand Chanter, offering compassion and guidance to those who come to our cathedral in need. You will learn to mend their bodies, minds, and spirits with prayer and wisdom, as well as becoming a teacher yourself, leading worshippers through their offerings and rituals so they can go closer to Akatosh. As a sermonizer, you will muster behind the Grand Sermonizer, armoring your conviction against the great enemies of heresy and infidelity to guide the lost and faithless back to the protective wings of the Dragon God. You will learn to wield words that will strike at the heart, purging the impurities of dark influence and self-indulgence. The wicked must be chastised and condemned before they may be redeemed, and it is you who will drive out their darkness. Do not mistake this division of duties for a lack of unity and purpose. We are guided by the Primate, who has the wisdom to see that both paths are equally important to the reverence of Akatosh. The Primate is the guiding light of our cathedral, improving the lives of all who look upon us, shining brilliance. The Primate, like Akatosh, will never lead you astray. And if a different task calls to you, one of military service and the need to safeguard the faithful, consider pledging yourself to the order of the hour. Keeping the cathedral and the faithful of Akatosh safe from the dangers of the world is a noble calling. Should the more spiritual nature of life in the cathedral seem like too mundane a method to show your devotion to the dragon god of time, these paths stand before you, Novitiate. May Akatosh guide you to your ultimate destination. And that is the final book for today. Thank you for joining me this evening. Take care.